Hello, good evening. Welcome. This is Hot Edition. We're live from our news hub at Desawe Kanda. Also live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W93.5 in Y and beyond. Your thoughts, views, comments, and opinions are welcome at 3FM 927. And we're also live on Facebook at 3FM 927 on YouTube as well. 3FM 927 read out to you and to the rest of the world this evening here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We'll give you an update on the Ghana Immigration Services crackdown on illegal immigrants in the country and their involvement in some nefarious activities. Stay with us. We've got an update for you on that here on Hot Edition. We'll continue the conversation on the energy sector in this country and what we're faced with right now here on Hot Edition. Parliament's Energy Committee is expected to grill the ECG today, and the meeting, we understand, is ongoing over the power crisis and the missing container saga. Stay with us here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Also, petroleum prices drop for the third consecutive time in the last 2 months, prompting calls for a downward adjustment in transport fares. Any justification? We'll tell you. And Yonam Haliga is here with a summary of the news.
In today's summary, the Ghana Immigration Service has launched a sweeping operation to remove undocumented foreign nationals engaged in street begging across Accra. In an early morning operation on today, GIS officers targeted known begging hotspots including Sabnobu Zongo, Nima Abusokai, and the Obechebi runabout. According to official figures, 2,241 individuals were detained. Among them were 909 adults, 384 male, 525 female, and 1,332 children. The Minister of Finance, Dr. Kasiola Toforsen, has announced an ambitious government plan to acquire 220,000 acres of land for cocoa plantation as part of efforts to revive Ghana's struggling cocoa sector and restore production level to 1 million metric tons. Speaking at the inauguration of the new 11-member board of directors for the Ghana Cocoa Board at the Ministry of Finance, Dr. Forsen stressed the urgent need for bold interventions to address the sharp decline in cocoa production. The Ghana Highway Authority has condemned the vandalism of the retaining wall near the Tantra Hill underpass on the Achimota Ofanko road, that's the N6. It's therefore reminded the public that tampering with public infrastructure was a criminal offense punishable by law under the Road Traffic Regulation 2012, that's LI 2180. Before I go, the Community Court of Justice of the ECOWAS Court has dismissed a legal action brought by Ghanaian musician Charles Nyama Mensah, popularly known as Shatawali, ruling that his claim of discrimination against the Republic of Ghana and the Gaming Commission lacked merit. That's all for the summaries today.
Thank you. There's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. This is Hot Edition. We're live on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond, and also on W93.5 in Wa and beyond. Let's get into some more stories. As the management of the Electricity Company of Ghana is meeting the Mines and Energy Committee of Parliament to brief them on the state of the power distributor. The meeting comes on the back of the concerns raised by the Minister for Energy and Green Transition, John Jenapo, regarding a 2 billion cedis monthly funding deficit in the energy sector, largely due to ECG's revenue collection shortfall. George Quening has been following this particular meeting and the engagement right now. He's joining me on the telephone. George, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Alfred, loud and clear.
Great. I know you've been sitting through this meeting. Tell us what's been happening there so far.
So, Alfred, thanks for having me. And the almighty ECG is actually meeting the committee, and this actually has been a workshop that has spanned 3 days. Tomorrow is the last day. And for most media houses that are here today, ECG's presence today is what really is the crux of the whole workshop. And the management of the company is led by the acting MD, who is in the person of Engineer Kwame Pekmena, and he has admitted a lot of shortfalls. The fact is, it's their duty to ensure they give a reliable supply. Some of these challenges are beyond them. Some, of course, are internal inefficiencies that they are working on, but some are also ones that are beyond them. But they've also advised customers to pay their bills on time, and those theft cases, power theft and all that, should be stopped. And so if you want consistency and in power supply, we should be able to, on our part as customers, we should be able to adhere to some of these to ensure that everything is on point. So he's actually craving our indulgence as customers. They cannot work in isolation to give uninterrupted power supply. If we work with them, we would achieve the ultimate goal of having uninterrupted power supply. Alfred.
I see. Let's hear from the energy minister, who's been talking about this as well, and really what the concerns has been over the period. It's quite concerning, to say the least, hearing exactly how much would have to pay in terms of the shortfall by end of year, 30 billion. Cities, all things being equal, and the fact that we understand as well that the independent power producers are owed some 1.7 billion,
and then 400 million for car power ship. And so if we don't pay that funds before 18th May, some point of 50 megawatts of power that is sent to the national grid will be cut.
Let's hear the minister talk about this.
Yes.
Government spent over 24 billion cedis in energy sector, either you call it subsidies, under recoveries, or shortfalls. This year, it is estimated at over 30 billion in terms of the shortfall. Yesterday, we had a session with the finance minister, and a lot of the people here were there. We require about $1.1 billion to procure liquid fuels alone. Unfortunately, and the PRC is here, the liquid fuel is not part of the tariff structure. And so you will be buying close to $15 billion of liquid fuel, and that has to be paid by the central government because it's not part of the tariff structure. As if that is not enough, what you call the reserve margin, which is a necessity, because you just don't bring plants to meet exactly what you consume. What if one plant goes off for maintenance or any situation? That is not also part of the tariff structure. More importantly, the tariff itself, ECG is unable to collect all the monies. And so you're having a deficit of about 2 billion cedis every month when it comes to ECG's collections. When you add that deficit and you add the fuel, which is not part of the pass-through, you are looking at over 30 billion. Car Power has just sent us a letter that by 18th, they will shut down the plant because we owe them more than $400 million. IPPs alone, we owe them $1.7 billion. And so it's serious.
That's serious. I mean, in the words of the energy minister there. And George, has this meeting ended as yet?
No, so like you already mentioned, it's actually a gloomy picture that the sector minister, painted. That was yesterday during the opening of the workshop. And like I already mentioned, the workshop is spanning 3 days, and the ECG is currently meeting the committee. But tomorrow, the committee is also expecting to meet Imani Africa, who of course are going to give some sort of policy alternatives when it comes to the privatization of ECG. The minister has mentioned that the privatization of ECG was not going to solve the entire problems of the power dispute about these. It will take us to the next level. So clearly, tomorrow will be one big day where Imani will also bring some of these perspectives to bear, Alfred.
Appreciate you for this. And George, thank you so much. And we'll keep an eye on how things play out here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. We're also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W 93.5 in Wa and beyond. On this same matter, Dr. T.A. Champon has been sharing his thoughts with me on what the issues are and the way forward really should be, especially because of the concerns that you heard the Energy Minister, John Janampo, raise.
Keep the lights on, and monies that were owed across the entire value chain in excess of $2 billion USD. Similarly, in 2024, there were reports, some of them captured in news articles and both print and online media, of the likes of Car Power Ship and others threatening to shut down their power plants because they are owed money. So what I'm trying to basically say, these are legacy debt issues that have persisted in the sector, and every now and then the companies come up and ask for payment to be made, part of that is settled, and then things go quiet for a while, and then it kind of resurfaces again. But fundamentally, the issue has to do with what is happening downstream with ECG not being able to collect all of the monies from the power that it buys, and the need to actually restructure or reform its operations. If that is not done, these problems would persist.
And talk about restructuring of ECG's operations. The minister ended what I just played with that thinking that's going on now. They're mulling the idea of a private sector participation as a way of addressing this. He's been in power for 4 months, just a little beyond 4 months. Could anything have been done about this particular situation that we're faced with now?
No, the things that need to be done are systemic, they are structural. Both the minister, anybody working in the sector knows that, you're not going to be able to fix the things in the energy sector overnight. Fundamentally, it rests on how we go about with the whole ECG private sector participation or privatization, exercise to be able to improve its collections. I cannot for the life of me, understand why you buy something for 1 cedi and you're able to only collect 60 pesos worth back. That clearly is the problem, and that is something that has to be fixed. There are other issues related to how the tariffs, are set, and that one, as part of the IMF program that we're under, a number of reform initiatives are being done through that. But I do recall very well sitting during the National Economic Dialogue. I sat on the subcommittee that looked at the energy and looked at the cocoa sectors, and these issues clearly was known amongst many of the participants within the room, and certainly has been for several years now. In fact, you can go all the way back to 2012, 2013, when the World Bank issued a famous report on the country's energy sector. You can come to 2019 when we did the energy sector recovery plan and we put in the catch waterfall mechanism, but the monies were actually not fully paid into the CWM. And now we're actually implementing a version 2 of that same, ESRP with a similar set of issues. What I'm basically trying to say is that the problems are deeply structural and they cannot be solved, overnight.
See, that's Dr. Theo Champong. He is an energy analyst and also a fellow with Imani Africa joining us. And as you heard George Kwene talk about the fact that Imani Africa is expected tomorrow to also share their policy proposal on the energy sector. Meanwhile, government has allayed the fears of citizens of any impending power crisis. This assurance comes barely a day after the Minister for Energy and Green Transition revealed that the nation only has less than 3 days stock of fuel available to power its plants. Head of communication at the ministry, Richmond Roxon, says 450,000 barrels of fuel are expected in the country in the next 48 hours. We'll bring you that shortly here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. This is Richmond Roxon speaking earlier.
The update now is that we had made provision for an import. We're expecting it between today and tomorrow. We're expecting 450,000 barrels of light crude oil. And with that, definitely any or the people's fears that we're going to sleep in darkness definitely will be averted. So that is the update for that. On the financing side, that's the bigger picture. There's no dedicated funding for fuels. Ordinarily, when you're selling a product, what should have happened is that once ECG Act procures electricity and sells, you should be able to at least get full cost recovery. That is not what we are experiencing. So consistently, the government of Ghana has to take steps to find money wherever we will find money to ensure that these fuels are procured. These are structural issues that the Ministries of Finance, the Energy Ministry has put before Cabinet to ensure that we take a second look at the tariff structure to ensure that these challenges do not continue. The sector is saddled with so much debt, and if steps are not taken for reforms, what will happen is that if we are not careful at a point, the sector may collapse, and that is what the ministry is committed to doing. Cabinet has approved that certain institutions described as critical or strategic institutions will not be on prepayment. They will be on post-payment. These 5 will be Interior, Defense, Office of the President, Health and Education. And even with that, it's not blanket. It's not that any institution found under that or any person under that who lives in a government bungalow is not going to pay electricity. No. Once we see an improvement in collection, we'll see the ripple effects in the sector. Because you can't have a shortfall of 2 billion every month. It doesn't work anywhere. There's no way it will work. If you have a 2 billion difference, averagely you're looking at 24 billion a year. If you add incidental costs, you're looking at about 30 billion. No business in the world can be sustainable through this. And that is why all these structural reforms are being dealt with, including a review of the tariffs by Cabinet.
That's Richmond Roxon. He speaks for the Energy Ministry. Some 21 minutes after 5. It's live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7. Also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale and beyond. We're live on W93.5 in Y and beyond. Timothy Nyame is the General Secretary of the Public Utilities Workers Union, POO. The Deputy General Secretary is joining us right now. Mr. Nyame, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
Now, hearing that because of the shortfalls in collection by ECG, government would have to make up the loss of some 2 billion cedis every month, and they're projecting by end of year some 30 billion cedis will have to be made available to make up for the shortfall of ECG. In the midst of all of these challenges that the power sector is faced with, I mean, for POO, how does all of this strike you?
Well, my warm greetings to your listeners again. And please, I'm the General Secretary of POO, not the DC.
Thank you.
All right. So, yes, energy sector debt is something that is trending always now and then. And it's actually worrying. But there are other issues that we have raised with the Ministerial Committee and for that matter government. Highlighting certain things that need to be done to resolve the issue, the energy sector debt. So for the mere fact that this debt is lingering does not warrant necessarily bringing the private sector at the retail end of the operation. Because the position prepared by POO to government specify a whole lot of issues that government need to do from the off-take point out from the IPP side through the operations up to the retail end. And we are saying that when those things are done and dealt with, the problems will be seen to be solved. I am glad to hear yesterday from the Honorable Minister that going forward, the state agencies should be made to pay their bills. Hitherto, there was what we call a clearinghouse, where the indebtedness of various entities are sent for settlement, which is no longer so. So that one also increases the receivables, that it does not bring so much revenue to the system. So it's a whole thing that we all have to look at. So we are all very worried about the debt, and the solutions have been outlined to government, the best way to handle it. And that we think that having presented to government, they should still look at it and let's solve it. And does not necessarily need a private sector. Government will so much power that he can just use. You see, by word of mouth, action is taken. Yesterday, the minister just directed that all government agencies should pay. Hey, it is done. So also other directives, other issues that we have applied to government for attention, they should take their time and look at it for solution. You don't need to bring a private sector to come and do that. You have appointed a managing director who has shown who is showing the way. You have recently, I learned yesterday or so, the board was inaugurated. So the board, together with the managing director, should be able to see to the direction of ECJ sustainability of it, so that we don't go to any external pressure in handing down the state institution like ECG for operation at the retail end.
But beyond the suspicion of external pressure and so on, but for you, Paul, as well, I mean, how are you going to work to, as it were, achieve this same objective that you expect government to also lead in, for instance, addressing the challenges in the sector? You also have a role to play, is it not? So what are you going to do?
To be very frank, after appointment of the new managing director, he has actually signed performance agreement with all the district managers, giving them targets of which, when they achieve, there will be reward and sanction. So from the managing director to the district, those directives have been given. And it's something that the union, for that matter, the workers are actually educating our members to seek up and let us see to the adherence to those directives. Because they are not illegal rules, they are rules that are legitimate, and then going by rate, it will be done. So it's not left the management and government itself to also reciprocate by procuring adequate meters and let us configure all the unintelligent meters into the system. Because we have meters that are under shape, the self-ability project meters, that did not necessarily pass through the system of ECG. And those people are also consuming power. So steps should be taken to incorporate them into the system of ECG so that they can be read and the revenue will be collected. This is what I'm saying. In addition to that, now state institutions are also supposed to pay their bills. So once those things are coming, you see things will fall in its own place. So now at the top level, they should also tackle the issue of the pricing and looking at this competitiveness, indexing into Ghana cities, and also certain clauses that used to be there. They should quickly review them so that we are buying power. You are buying power 100 megawatts, and you use, let's say, 70 megawatts. When you buy 1,000 megawatts and use 700 megawatts, you should be able to pay for the 700 megawatts and don't pay, let's say, pay the 1,000 megawatts. These are some of the things that we are saying. Either too, there's a clause that is called take or pay. Once they produce the power, they give it the power, we are obliged to pay. Those conditions should be changed and make the pricing also competitive and reindex the pricing into cities so that everything will be falling in place. So you see the reason why we are also skeptical about the pricing. When you overprice a commodity, which over time you yourself you see that you are not achieving the needed result, and you think that the retail end is the only problem. Why should we also continue to highlight certain deficiencies that they should look at? Then it becomes a source of worry. So the workers, they will do their part, and I want to assure you, they have kickstarted the work activities on the field, and once the government also do, or the management also do their part at top level, which will be done. We are also glad to hear that the government is resolved to remove the interference of politicians from the league, where procurement and other things are influenced by politicians. When they do that, please, those things will fall in there in the good place.
Oh, I thank you very much for your thoughts, and we'll look forward to you as well living up to your word and complementing the efforts of government. Thank you very much.
I'm most grateful, sir.
Timothy Jame is the General Secretary of the Public Utilities Workers Union, PUL, there. Now, the Ghana Immigration Service has launched a sweeping operation to remove undocumented foreign nationals engaged in street begging across the country. And starting off first in the Greater Accra region, arrested more than 2,000 individuals. The Friday dawn operation targeted known begging hotspots, including Sabonzongo, Madina, Nima, Abose Okain, and Obechebi roundabout. Also, according to official figures, 2,241 individuals were detained, 909 adults, which is made up of 384 males and 525 females, and some 1,332 children, made up of 577 boys and 755 girls. Assistant Commissioner of Immigration, ACI, Michael Amako Atta, Head of Public Affairs at the Ghana Immigration Service, explained that the crackdown aims to dismantle criminal networks exploiting vulnerable migrants in this country.
This early morning, the Comptroller General of the Ghana Immigration Service gave a directive for an operation to be launched to rid the streets of the national capital of foreign beggars who have taken over our streets. And this is based on intel we've gathered over the period, where especially some criminal elements have organized networks and using these children, and even behind that, engaging in human trafficking and other trans-border crimes, and which we think is against national security and public safety. So we've started to pick them up, profile them, and then remove them from the jurisdiction. So as we speak currently, we've been able to pick about 2,241 foreign nationals, and they are being profiled. First, the GIS clinic is attending to them, and then the ops team undertakes the profiling. And then after that, we bus them to their various destinations. So this number is not just over 2,000 children, but it's made up of 384 male adults, and then 577 male children. Then we have 525 female adults, and then 755 female children. So that is the current breakdown of the numbers that we have so far removed from the streets and are in our holding centers now.
And the detainees are undergoing security and medical screening before deportation. However, the operation has sparked concerns about the possible violations of the fundamental human rights of these individuals, as well as ECOWAS protocols on free movement. ACI Michael Amakonta stated that the Ghana Immigration Service is coordinating with relevant embassies to ensure orderly returns or deportation, while assuring humane treatment as well of these detainees.
This early morning, the Comptroller General of the American screen and all that, then we look at their documentations as to how they enter the country and whether they are legal or illegal migrants. If you are an illegal migrant, definitely we'll remove you from the jurisdiction.
Finally, I want to find out, given Ghana's commitment to the African Union's Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, how is the Immigration Service coordinating with child protection agencies to ensure the rights of these vulnerable minors are upheld during and after the operation?
Yes, so for this operation, one of our core values as an institution is respect for human rights. So we are making sure that each child picked up is with the parents or an adult sibling. After the medical screening, the next profiling is going to ensure that for each child, we can identify the parent before the next line of action. So we are not going to remove children who are unaccompanied or who are not with their parents. For that, we are very sure of that.
As the Government Immigration Service there, let's stay a bit further on this matter. Emmanuel Kuting is Executive Director of the Africa Center for Security and Counterterrorism. Mr. Kuting, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Alfred, thank you for having me, and very good evening to our cherished listeners.
Well, would you also share in those who raise this point that this is not the first time the Ghana Immigration Service is going on this path of rounding up these immigrants who are in this country illegally but are begging on the streets? A few days later, we find them back on the streets, or another group of immigrants begging illegally on the streets as well. So this may just not be a step that would sustain, as it were, that act of ridding our streets of these immigrants. You sharing that thought?
Well, I think there is new Controller General. I think we have to give him the benefit of the doubt, given he has come out with his own systems to create the impact. The challenge I have with the operation is that it didn't have this nationalistic outlook. And you know that more often than not, the way information flows, those in other regions may not come out for a period. And when the immigration time period passes, they return to to our streets. So that's why we get some of these things. But you see, Alfred, we must view these operations very critically. You know, I think the right intervention wouldn't have been wouldn't have been to arrest the children, but rather they should have been protecting them. And this raises a lot of questions. You see, if you look at the ECOWAS protocol on movement of persons within the ECOWAS sub-region, and maybe if you look at the national conventions and obligations as far as Ghana is concerned, I think there are some human rights issues here. Let's put the issues into context. The ECOWAS protocol and the free movement of persons. Yes, within the ECOWAS sub-region, you can move to other countries for 6 months without a visa. But that doesn't mean you can engage in some form of illegality. So you see these women and children, most of them are fleeing from violent extremism-related challenges or instability in their countries. So to me, I think it's an ECOWAS issue because there's lack of effective monitoring and regulation. So if you look at the protocol, it's on the facilitation of movement, you see that there are limited infrastructure to track and manage vulnerable migrants, especially children. And if you look at the social protection system, so there are gaps. You see, the free movement does not guarantee access to basic services of protection in the host countries. So children on the move often fall through the cracks, and this leads to forms of abuse. And if you look at these children on the street, it's not in their rightful thinking they are doing that. It's their mothers who are pushing them to do what they are doing.
Absolutely so. And that's why I bring in, if you acknowledge that it's their mothers or their parents who are pushing them and exposing them to all the vulnerabilities, then how do we address it as a country? Because, I mean, if we are arresting their parents, rounding them up to deport them, including their children, and you're raising human rights issues bothering on the children involved, how do we distinguish between the two? Or we certainly cannot tackle their parents and leave their children in here.
Very good question, Alfred. That's why we have to look at the national conventions and obligations as a state. And if you look at the UN Convention on the Rights of the Child, the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child, and the last one is the Protocol to Prevent, Suppress, and Punish Trafficking in Person. You know, that one was recently done in Palermo. We call it the Palermo Protocol. If you put all of these instruments together, Alfred, it prohibits child exploitation, including forced begging. And this has been with us for a long time. What has the authorities done about it? It also requires that states have to cooperate across borders to protect these children. Do we see that within the ECOWAS sub-region? No. And it also emphasizes that anything we do or actions we take, it must be in the best interest of what? The child. So you see that all of this, that's why I started by saying that it's a good exercise, but it should have had a nationalistic outlook where the operations would have covered all the regions simultaneously, then no one can go under the bar. Then we get rid of this once and for all, like the immigration officer was talking about. And if you show that traffickers are exploiting these children, they are dealt with under the confines of the law. Then we look at how we can rescue and rehabilitate these children and look at their safe repatriation to their various countries. But Alfred, We can't be talking about all of these things without looking at the root causes. Otherwise, we'll be scratching and talking in circles over the same issue. It is a fact that the symptoms are deeper. One, poverty and instability in West Africa as a whole. So what is ECOWAS doing about that? And the lack of education and opportunity for women and children. And you know, these are even facts. Even in our country that we have stability, we have all these things happening. And we have failure of national child protection system. Even in Ghana, if you go to the villages, you see that the children more or less have been enslaved. But because of our cultural system, where we gloss over some of these things. And there are weak cross-border cooperation and intelligence sharing among the ECOWAS countries. So it's a big problem. So what would be my recommendation, Alfred? I think we need to strengthen ECOWAS monitoring mechanism. We need to create cross-border child protection protocol. And the host country must always be supported, like in the case of Ghana. Ghana needs to be supported with funding to be able to manage some of the crises like we are seeing today. Because whether we like it or not, it's the taxpayers' money we are going to resolve a problem that is otherwise not a Ghanaian problem, but an institutional caricature as a result of ECOWAS failures.
And on that particular point about the failures in the sub-region, how about the porous borders as well? Because tackling them when they get in is one aspect of the solution. But if we also don't look at how they get in, we might just be scratching the surface of the solution, is it not?
Alfred, you are very right with our borders. But with our women and children, they are so fragile. And these fragile migrants cannot come through the illegal borders. They come through our roads. It's just lack of enforcement. The immigration officers at our various borders, they are sometimes lackadaisical. Sometimes when it comes to some of these things, they want to put human face to it. But it snowballs to situations where we have, like we have in our capital city, where you turn at any intersection, you see children begging. And that does not even augur well for Ghana in our international standing. So the whole thing still fall back to ECOWAS. So if you ask me, is ECOWAS falling on its ideals? In fact, I would say that no, but it is falling short in execution. And without robust protection, free movement becomes a tool for exploitation and not empowerment.
So, Coach, appreciate you for this. Thank you so much for joining us.
Most grateful, Alfred.
Emmanuel Kuting is the Executive Director of the Africa Center for Security and Counterterrorism there. Shall I be on Hot Edition? The Ghana Health Service situational report on the Mpox outbreak has revealed one more case of Mpox was recorded in February, bringing the number of cases to 3. There's also so far been no record of deaths, while cases remain mild and are being managed in self-isolation with close contacts to the infected persons also being tested. The CITREP further noted that all 16 regions have recorded suspected cases in 2025. Now, case 1 is a 32-year-old male on antiretroviral medication. He's presented with a week's history of fever, chills, pustular and vesicular lesions on the trunk, and also some anorectal regions. Case 2 is a 34-year-old male with a 2-week history of generalized rash. He reported to the hospital after his symptoms failed to improve with self-medication. Public health investigations into the newly confirmed cases are being undertaken, along with contact tracing and active community case search, while sensitization of healthcare workers on case definition is ongoing. Measures that have been put in place so far includes a National Public Health Reference Laboratory, NPHRL, which has been the capacity so far by the Ghana Health Service to diagnose, and the Ghana Infectious Disease Center, also has been designated as the main isolation place for those who need inpatient care. Let's get on to the telephone now, and Dr. Joseph Ajete Oliver Kome is a director at the Ghana Infectious Disease Center. Dr. Kome, good evening. Thank you for joining us.
Good evening.
Now,
thank you for having me.
Perfect. Now, we're just getting to know that there's been a third case confirmed. So now we have 3 cases confirmed in the year 2025. But how concerning is it that this same report by the Ghana Health Service indicates that all 16 regions have recorded suspected cases of Mpox in 2025?
Okay, so you know what happens is in surveillance, you suspect. So people are getting rashes. So they suspect them as monkeypox. And then once you test them, if they are confirmed, then we say you have a case of monkeypox. So it's good. With good surveillance, people are coming forward. People are being referred for us as suspected monkeypox. But at the end of the day, we've only had in total 3 confirmed cases across the country.
I see. But also, talk about the infection as well. Those persons who are close, the close contacts of these persons that have been detected as well, what should be the education, especially for the public, in terms of what to look out for, so that in the case of this second case who was doing self-medication until it couldn't address it, then he showed up in the hospital, the public would also know what to look out for?
Okay, so remember we have said that Mpox, the main mode of transmission, is for you getting into contact with the fluid from the vesicles or from the lesions. So once you get into contact with that, that's when you may end up having Mpox. Key thing is that for the people who are infected with the rashes all over them, they need to self-isolate. If they need to go out of where they are, at least they should wear some protective clothes that covers their pox, so that any other person's contact will not be with the body fluids. The other thing is that if you are looking after a relative who is at home and being managed for monkeypox, maybe on home care basis, when you need to wash the person's things, you may need to use gloves to do that. You may need to wear some protective clothing to do that. If you're in the same space with the person, you still need to wear your mask and then also practice hand hygiene. Make sure you're washing your hands with soap and water, maybe after touching the things that the person has used, and also using your alcohol sanitizer. For those of us in the general populace, unless we come into physical contact with an infected person, the risk is quite low.
I see. And the caveat you put there is that unless we come into contact with an infected person, and you have most of the persons who are listening to us, a number of us will depend on the public transport, trotro, as we call it. I mean, social distancing is almost impossible in these buses. How can we avoid this?
So one of the key things is that if you are infected, I mean, the only way you will start shedding is when you have the pox lesions all over you, and that's when you will start. If you are just having the fever, headaches, sore throats without the rashes on your body, it's unlikely that you will shed the monkeypox virus.
Right, and you say that the hand washing is also one way of.
So hand washing, because you don't know who you've touched, you don't know what you have held. So as a general precaution for all of us, let's wash our hands well. Let's use our sanitizers. In that case, even if you touch something that somebody with monkeypox had touched without you knowing, you know you have washed the virus off your hands.
I see, but Doc, with these 3 cases reported, is there a concern there? I mean, should the public, all of us, should be concerned about this development?
So let's say the whole of 2024, we recorded 5 cases of monkeypox after testing close to about 300 suspected cases. Monkeypox is there. It's when we look for it, we may find it. Because it doesn't cause any major problems. Almost all the cases we've had, None of them has been that hospitalized. We've managed all of them on OPD basis. I think that there is no cause for alarm. Currently ongoing in the West African sub-region, we have Sierra Leone contributing almost close to 90% of the monkeypox cases, followed by Nigeria and, let's say, Cote d'Ivoire. The key thing for us is to heighten the discussion about monkeypox, such that if you have the lesions, you either go to the hospital or you self-isolate so that you will not infect other people. The cases we've had, the 2 cases are coming from Accra Metro, but from different places in Accra Metro, and they are not linked. Yes, we are following up their contacts over a period to see whether any of them will develop the symptoms.
I do appreciate your thoughts on this, Doc. Thank you so much for the education and recommendations as well.
You're welcome.
And it's live on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, and some detail in there. You just heard the director in charge of the Ghana Infectious Disease Center, Dr. Joseph Ajete Oliver Kome, in there. So live on Hot Edition. But let's go into some more stories right now, because the Office of Special Prosecutor says it will be interrogating the former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta on 2nd June 2025. The former minister has for months been unavailable despite being declared wanted on multiple occasions, with his lawyers insisting he is receiving treatment abroad. Director of Strategy, Research and Communication at the Special Prosecutor's Office, Samid Akon, has been providing an update on this matter.
But when we declared Mr. Ofori-Atta wanted and we were about to upgrade it to put him on Interpol Red Alert, he did, through his lawyers, come back to us and give us this time a definitive date within which he will return to the jurisdiction and then appear before the OSP. Subsequent to that, he did indicate the time that he will come to Ghana. I don't particularly remember, but it was either between 14 to about 28 or 24 May, for which he will come. The SP graciously did say he will add a bit more time to him, and so the office agreed for him to appear before the office on the 2nd of June. So everything being equal, we are expecting Mr. Ofori-Atta to appear before the OSP on the 2nd of June. I noticed that a lot of people have been putting up messages that the OSP is not doing anything about it because it was May. I think that May timeline was put in the public domain by the minority leader, if I recall. But for as long as we are concerned, Mr. Ofori-Atta is to appear before us on the 2nd of June.
So that's the Director, Research, Strategy and Communication at the Special Prosecutor's Office, Samid Akon, there. Now, to some good news for commuters and indeed users of vehicle. Prices of the petroleum products at the pumps are set to witness the biggest drop in the last at least few months gone by. This is according to the Chamber of Oil Marketing Companies pricing outlook for the second pricing window for the month of May 2025. According to the pricing guidelines for the window, petrol is expected to go down between 6.7% and 8.8% per litre from today. By this, essentially, what this means is that all things being equal, a litre of petrol is expected to be sold between 12 cedis 28 pesos and 13 cedis 50 pesos, or even much lower. Now, diesel, on the other hand, is expected to be reduced by 4% or 6% per litre. This could result in a litre being sold for between 13 cedis 80 pesos and 14 cedis 40 pesos. Liquefied petroleum gas LPG is likely to sell for 16 cedis per kilogram if the various oil marketing companies adjust their prices by 5.3%. The chamber has attributed the reason for the sharp drop in prices to the city's record appreciation against the dollar. And Frederick Kuzonti Ani is with me in the studio. Is visited a number of these fuel stations, and what did you observe where you went?
Right, Fred. So I've been to about 4 fuel stations in Accra, just 37 here. Per my visit, I've realized that per my interaction too with the fuel pumps attendants and customers alike, they have been sharing some vital information. They say prices for oil. Prices have reduced in terms of what was expected in the morning or what was being sold in the morning till now. Let's look at raw 95. In the morning, it was being sold at 15 cedis, 41 pesos, but now it is currently selling at 15 cedis, 19 pesos, with a difference of 0.22. When you go to normal super, in the morning it was selling at 13 cedis, 65 pesos, but now it's currently being sold at 13 cedis, 32 pesos, with a difference of 0.33. For diesel, like rightly mentioned, it was sold at 14.41 pesos in the morning, but it's currently being sold at 13.91 pesos this evening.
You mean 13 cedis, 91 pesos?
Yes, 13 cedis, 91 pesos, and that will be a difference of 0.5. That is for Goil. When you go to Shell fuel station, they say they've not experienced any changes since morning. However, probably from tomorrow till Monday, they are most likely to also experience some changes, and they are currently selling their diesel at 14 cedis, 89 pesos, and that is for fuel safe diesel. And for fuel safe super, they are selling it at 13 cedis, 65 pesos, and V Power is being sold at 15 cedis, 49 pesos. For Total, they say they've not also experienced any change for the past 2 weeks. They might see some changes from tomorrow as well. And diesel is being sold at 13 cedis, 75 pesos. For super, it's 13 cedis, 75 pesos as well. And then for super 95, it's 16.10%, 10 pesos. That is what some pumps in Accra. Yes.
See, Frederick Kunzotiani, I appreciate you for this. Let's stay a bit on this matter. Duncan Amoah is Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC. Duncan, now, hearing these margins of reduction so far between 70 to 50 pesos, that's for petrol, and then there's about 40 to 70 pesos reduction for diesel. Does it match the projection that you made, or as you have held in the past, some of these fuel stations are shortchanging consumers?
Alfred, thank you. Indeed, the expectation both from the Ghanaian public, the Chamber Petroleum Consumers, and even Chamber Oil Marketing Companies itself is or was a huge one, coming from the back of the fact that the CD has experienced the highest, jump in recent times within the past fortnight. The window started with the CD around 14.45. And then you close now around 12.85. That's quite significant. And then again, you also have a situation where international benchmarks are seeing some drops in prices for both PMS and AGO, petrol and diesel, as well as LPG globally. So the expectation naturally would have been that we should see anything between 5 and 10%. Like you rightly indicated, what we've recorded so far with 3 oil marketing companies, Goil, Zen, and then Star Oil, you get the indication we are hovering between 3 and 5% so far. It would have been our wish that at least we get a full stream of reductions. That meant that if we got nothing at all, between 6 to 8 to 10% across the 3 products would have been sufficient. The next worrying development is whenever product prices decline, then you have the OMCs sluggishly reduce prices. It's as though they are not in a hurry. They are not excited about passing on the full effect of the reductions to the consumer. That for us is worrying. If the reverse was the case for this window, where prices are supposed to go up or likely to go up, I'm sure we could be counting at least 10 OMCs by this time, the first day of the window, 5, 6 p.m. You would have seen a lot more of the OMCs reduce prices for consumers. So that drag, the lackadaisical attitude that is exhibited to all of us, is something that we need to condemn. Again, the percentages that Ghanaians would have expected, the numbers that we would have expected, even COMAC itself could have expected, doesn't look like that is what we are getting now. Often the excuse has also been that, well, some losses had been occasioned previously, and so they would rather use the windfalls when they get them to be able to offset whatever losses that would have been incurred. We say it's a big no for some of these things. If Ghanaians deserve to get 80% reductions, give that to them so that tomorrow, when the parameters or the dynamics are not the same, and for any reason you would need to inch up on prices, we do not start then from high, but rather the new low that we came to, so that consistently our pockets could be a bit easier. I mean, as far as buying petroleum products is concerned. So we are not happy as of this evening, Alfred.
I say, so we consumers deserve much better than we're being given in terms of the reduction.
Exactly. I was expecting a little bit more. There's been this unspoken rule in Ghana that sort of applies, the $1 1 liter rule. So if today I'm seeing a dollar trading for around 12.85, my natural expectation will be that at least a liter of petrol, diesel, could be hovering between the 12, maximum 12.9, 13.1, but clearly we're still seeing or recording prices a bit higher than those numbers. So that will tell you that there's still some drag. There's still some effect that the Ghanaian is not seeing at the pumps, and that for us is not entirely a good thing.
Samoa, appreciate you for this. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Duncan Amoa is Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC, there. So live here on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7, also on Kesmi 107.1 in Tamale, and on W 93.5 in and beyond. Juliana Menuafo is standing by with the business news. After this quick break, stay with us.
Hello, Ghana.
good evening. Welcome to the business segment on Hot Edition. Coming up tonight, despite drop in fuel prices for the second pricing window, Chamber of Petroleum Consumers says the margin could have been more. My name is Menu. I will bring you details of this and more shortly. Please stay. Now, the details. For the sixth consecutive pricing window, fuel prices in Ghana are on a downward trend, bringing much-needed relief to consumers. Starting today, the second pricing window of May 2025 sees some oil marketing companies reducing their prices by between 4 to 8%.
This significant decrease means that some fuel stations are now quoting notably lower prices at the pumps. Petrol is being sold for approximately 12 cedis, 57 pesos per litre, while diesel is going for around 13 cedis, 49 pesos. RON 95, another type of petrol, is priced at about 14 cedis, 89 pesos at some stations. Other OMCs are selling petrol at 13 cedis, 32 pesos, diesel at 13 cedis, 91 pesos, while RON 95 goes for 15 cedis, 19 pesos. However, Executive Secretary of the Chamber of Petroleum Consumers, COPEC, Duncan Amwa, believes the reduction should have been more.
Anytime prices are to decline or go down, the OMCs will sometimes play the wait-and-see card for a few days before passing on reduction that the consumer deserves. Meanwhile, if it was the other way around, where prices are supposed to go up, you would have seen the aggression, the hurry with which the pumps get adjusted. So we are watching. I'm sure a lot of the Ghanaian motoring public are also watching to see how soon they will pass on these reliefs to all of us at the pumps.
This consistent drop in fuel prices over several weeks offers a positive development for operators, businesses and individual vehicle owners, potentially easing transportation costs and overall expenditure. It remains to be seen how long this downward trend will continue and the full impact it will have on the cost of goods and services in the country.
That was a report on fuel prices dropping for the second pricing window. And in a significant move towards fostering seamless trade and economic growth across Africa, the Bank of Ghana and the National Bank of Rwanda are collaborating on an initiative to streamline cross-border payments. This joint effort, supported by the Global Financial Innovation Network, aims to address the persistent difficulties faced by individuals and small businesses in sending and receiving money across African borders. Head of FinTech and Innovation at the Bank of Ghana, Kwame Opong, highlighted the collaborative nature of this endeavor, emphasizing the recognition among regulators that a unified approach is crucial to navigate the evolving global and African financial landscape.
Something is happening very differently. Regulators have come to terms with the fact that the nature of the development on the global scene, as well as here in Africa, requires that we collaborate. And that collaboration is already happening. I mean, reference was made to our partnership and collaboration with the Rwanda Central Bank, for instance, where we're exploring licensed passporting, as well as cross-border payments. And in fact, Ghana is leading in mobilizing, together with Rwanda, an initiative with GFTN and PAPS, an initiative to bring central banks together so we can test and learn on how we actually achieve things like cross-border payments, so that MSMEs and individuals on the continent can actually send and receive money among themselves.
That was Head of FinTech and Innovation at the Bank of Ghana there. Away from that, the Ghana Statistical Service has stressed the critical need for consistent and up-to-date labor statistics to effectively understand and respond to the evolving dynamics of the national labor market. Speaking on the matter, the Director of Business, Industry and Trade Statistics at the GSS, Dr. Owusu Keja, pointed out that A thorough understanding of the changes and trends within the labor market is essential for informed decision-making by policymakers, businesses, and other stakeholders.
We know the dynamics within the labor market where people move in and out. And so it is important to get data that will help policy decision-making in terms of designing strategies that will help improve on the situation in terms of labor in Ghana. Government is also putting in place 24-hour economy, and that has a lot to do with labor. And so we're talking about issues like mismatch of qualifications and skills. We're talking about how labor is engaged within the program that the government is putting up in place. And so we need to get all this information such that as a country, we'll be able to get data that will help to find out whether the programs are working well or otherwise.
Director of Business, Industry and Trade Statistics at the GSS, Dr. Owusu Kejate. Well, that's it for the business segment on Hot Edition tonight. I am Minu Afo. Visit our website, 3news.com, for more stories. Sports News is up next with Billy Shen. Please stay tuned.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on the 3FM Hot Edition. My name is Bill Ishen. Now, let's start off from the world of boxing, because after conducting a thorough investigation into the death of Nigerian boxer Gabriel Oluwasegun Olarewaju, a 7-member committee established by the Ministry of Sports and Recreation has submitted a 100-page report detailing their findings. The committee was inaugurated by Minister Kofi Adams to determine the circumstances surrounding the boxer's death at the Bukum Boxing Arena on March 29, 2025. Now, Sports Minister Kofi Adams has assured the public that the ministry would implement the findings that were made in that report.
The ministry have received the report. We will study it and then make sure that we implement the findings. I have no doubt that the kind of time and energy you put in, we will be reading a report that is good, a report that brings out the issues as they are, that nothing has been buried, and we will be dealing with it.
That was the Minister of Sports and Recreation, Honorable Kofi Adams. Now, in the Ghana Premier League, Hearts-of-Oak are up against Berekum Chelsea match day 31 this weekend. Now, the Phobians have had a forgettable season, picking up one win in their last 5 games. Ahead of their game against Berekum Chelsea, head coach of the side, Abubakar Ouattara, says the team would adjust its approach.
It's the intelligence we are going to take into work on it, like every match we are approaching for every match. You know, every match has its own reality. What do you want to achieve for this match? What do you have as players who are available before you checking the yellow cards and the injured players, and there's so many things. So we are doing it slowly. We are going to the front to play a league match.
That was a coach of Heartful Abubakar Ouattara. Now let's do some more Ghana Premier League stories, because Mediama are away to relegation-threatened Karela United. The Morven Yellows have lost their last 3 away games and are faced with a possibility of another defeat. Now, ahead of that tie, coach of Mediama, Ibrahim Tanko, says his side will fight to earn a point from the clash.
I mean, Karela is another stubborn side, and they beat BBNE Gold Stars and the league leaders at home, so definitely and they are going to stay home with their confidence. But I mean, we are coming there to try to win the game, or if possible we pick a point there.
That was Coach Ibrahim Tanko of Mediama SC. Now, women's football fans are in for a treat this weekend with 2 blockbuster finals. Who claim glory in the FA Cup and the Women's Premier League. A big weekend of women's football expected to provide answers. One of the participating teams, of course, the fixtures are Jonina Ladies, who will be facing Faith Ladies in the Women's FA Cup, whilst Police Ladies will be facing Ampem Dakwa in the Women's Premier League final showdown. Now, there's history in the making at the Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations. South Africa have reached their first final since 1997 and will face Morocco for the trophy. They beat Nigeria by 1-0 thanks to a second-half goal from Tylon Smith. The opponents in the final, Morocco, also overcame North African rivals Egypt in a one-way semi-final. For more, we've been joined by a South African journalist, Lawrence Kula, who provides more perspectives on this matter.
Yesterday, after beating Nigeria 1-0, they're going to be playing Morocco. For many of us, it's a twofold thing. We never doubted the quality of the team, but we did doubt the quality of the preparation going into this AFCON in Egypt, given the fact that I think there's only 21 players that were taken to Cairo or to Egypt based on budget constraints. And then also to the fact that we lost some key players due to their clubs not allowing them to join up with this team, which was our number 10, Chandre Campbell of Club Brugge. He was not allowed to be called up because he got a first-team promotion from the club NXT. Bokazi, our first choice left centre-back, obviously with Pirates in the Champions League and fighting for the league title at the time, they did not allow him to be released as well. Siyabonga Mabena, one of our key attackers, he tore his ACL during the season with Sundowns, and he only recently came back. So there were many question marks of whether the team would be good enough to go all the way. Yes, they are talented, but they've obviously silenced a lot of doubters, a lot of critics.
That was Lawrence Kula, journalist from South Africa, reacting to South Africa's run to the Under-20 Africa Cup of Nations final. Now let's move on to England, where Chelsea manager Enzo Maresca has emphasized the need to finish the season on a good note. Chelsea are currently level on points with Aston Villa in 5th place and host Manchester United in the Premier League on Friday night as the battle for Champions League places continues.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think at the beginning of the season we were, as you said, if someone said us that we need to win the last 2 games to reach a Champions League spot, probably we were happy. I think overall during the season we had moments, for instance, the first 5-6 months where we were second, third, so even better. And now we are there and we're gonna try to finish well.
That was Enzo Maresca, the head coach of Chelsea. Now to the camp of Manchester United, where head coach Ruben Amorim has described the Red Devils' season as embarrassing. United have won 6 Premier League games since Amorim took over as manager in November 2024 and are on course for their worst ever Premier League finish.
It seems like I'm pushing all to the players. I'm the responsible, and I'm really. It's hard to find another word. I'm really embarrassed of in 26 games win 6, and something is wrong in the way we are playing football. And sometimes it's not about the way we play tactically and technically, it's the way we face competition and the way we suffer and the way we get mad because we are losing and the way we protect the goal. And these things we need to improve, and sometimes it's not just inside the pitch, it's outside the pitch. But that feeling that I'm talking about, like to fight until the end, the way we face competition, it's not okay to lose, it's not okay to draw. It doesn't matter if we can change our position in the league or not. That feeling is nothing about confidence. It's about the belief and the understanding that we are in Manchester United, and we don't want to be the worst.
That was Ruben Amorim, the head coach of Manchester United. Now, all eyes will be on Wembley during this weekend as Crystal Palace take on Manchester City in the FA Cup final. Now, let's hear from football analyst Rahman Osman on what to expect.
So, it's the FA Cup weekend, and what a competition. Honestly, what do we expect from this one? I mean, Crystal Palace are in their third FA Cup final, and they've lost the last 2 since they got to Wembley. But without a doubt, this is going to be one of their biggest days as a club. I mean, a very tiny but decent club in South London, and if they're able to win the FA Cup without, like, saying in modern history, nothing will top that. But they come up against what I describe as an immovable force in Manchester City, who are looking to not banish but make up for what has been a generally disappointing season for them. So they'll try to win something, not to cover the very nature of the season, but just to show that even in the midst of all the chaos, we can still win a trophy. And there's some really interesting things to watch. Kevin De Bruyne might be playing his last game for the club. He's leaving at the end of the season. And in the eyes of so many people, he's the best midfielder in Premier League history, or at least the time he's played in the Premier League. But there's a player that has been linked to replace him, Eberechi Eze. He's sensational. He plays for Crystal Palace. So you get a feeling that these two master midfielders will decide the game.
That was Rahman Osman giving what he expects from the FA Cup final between Crystal Palace and Manchester City. Now, let's move on to Spain, where Barcelona are champions of Spain for the 28th time in their history, capping off a remarkable debut season for manager Hansi Flick. Now, what made the difference for the club? We get insights from Spanish football journalist Beñat Gutierrez.
Yeah, I think for Barca, it's going to really depend on how they deal with the off-the-pitch issues they have. Because when you look at the team they built, it's amazing. All the credits also to Hansi Flick, who got a team that was really struggling, who seemed completely on a downfall under Xavi. And it's a completely different team now. It is true that the growth of players like Yamil Lamal means a lot. He's an amazing player. He's the new Messi, you can say, at least the closest we've seen in a long time.
That's it for the sports segment here on the 3FM Hot Edition. My name is Bill Shen. We have Alfred and the rest of the team with more, but have a great weekend as we prepare for next week as well.
Bill, thank you very much. There's more news on 3news.com. Make some time and visit 3news.com. Before we go here on Hot Edition, it's been 2 months already since President John Dramani Mahama visited the communities in Ketu South suffering from the ravages of a tidal wave and promised to ensure the completion of the Blekusu Sea Defense Project to end their carrying disaster. But what appears to be a forever silence on the part of government over the last 8 weeks. Residents in the affected communities are appealing to the president not to renege on his promise as the situation gets worse. There's more in the following reports by correspondent Faisal Abdul Idris.
President Mahama on March 6, 2025, paid a working visit to the affected communities to observe for himself the extent of havoc caused by the recurring tidal wave incidents in the area. The president on his visit promised to ensure the completion of the Blekusu Sea Defense Project to protect communities along the coastline, particularly Salakope, Amutinu and Agaveji, whose residents have been rendered homeless.
So I'm going to ask the finance minister to include funding to start phase 2 of the Blekusu Sea Defense Project.
The president's promise did not only excite the residents but also rekindle the hope of the victims. But several weeks after, residents say they are worried over government's seeming silence over the issue. The president heard our persistent cries and visited the communities with a high-powered delegation. He gave us hope and assurance that he will commence the Sea Defense Project to protect us. But since then till now, we haven't really heard anything. Things have become even worse. We are here hoping that something will start on the ground soon. But we are not seeing anything. In the last few weeks, things have become worse, with several other residents displaced.
The only thing that came to light is the 200 million Ghana cedis that was captured in the budget. Even that, we do not know what that money was meant for.